want to let it come out. So actually she tries to keep it under control, she's pushing it down, but then at some point it explodes, it comes out, and she can hurt the other person. And she feels sorry to hurt the other person, she feels compassion for the suffering that she caused them. And she wants to know how can she take better care of the situation.
But is she capable of seeing the suffering of the other person? Est-ce qu'elle est capable de voir la souffrance dans l'autre personne? Et quand? Après l'explosion ou avant?
I do see the suffering, but I still have the strong emotion come out. And what can I do with it?
To control is not enough. To control maybe to suppress. Suppressing is not good because it's always there. You pin it down, but it's still always there. So suppressing is not good. You have to transform. And to transform, you need compassion. The only antidote for anger or violence is compassion. There is no other way. But how to fabricate compassion? How to generate the energy of compassion? That is the real question. And in this retreat we have learned that by recognizing the suffering, because suffering in that person is the cause of his action or words that can make you suffer. The anger in him water the anger in you. The violence in him water the violence in you. And that is why to breathe in and out mindfully and to look to see that the other person is victim of his own violence, his own suffering, his own misunderstanding is very important. This is the teaching of Buddha. Look at suffering and understanding suffering. When you understand your own suffering, you can understand the suffering of the other person. Understanding suffering always brings compassion, and only compassion can transform anger and violence. There are those of us who think that we can take the block of anger out of us, like to do surgery. But you cannot do that with anger. You cannot take anger out of you. You can only transform it. Anger can be transformed within into something else. Anger can be transformed into understanding and compassion. And that is the work of the practitioner. Looking into the suffering, your own suffering, and the suffering of the other person, and try to understand the cause. And then that is the way to generate the energy of compassion. And when compassion is there, it transforms anger. You don't need to take it out. There are those who try to take it out There are those who advise you to take it out by the practice of so-called ventilation. Ventilation. It's like there's a smoke in your room and you want to ventilate the smoke, just take it out. And the way is to go to your room and lock the door, and try to punch, to hit your pillow. To hit 10 minutes and 15 minutes. And I believe that by doing so, you may take anger out of you. I am aware that anger is there. I want to take it out. Because they think that it's safer to hit a pillow than to hit directly the other person. And they call it, take it out of your system. But it does not work. It does not work. It might make your anger stronger. It is like rehearsing your anger. And they call it getting in touch with your anger. It's good to get in touch with your anger. The Buddha also advised us to breathe in, to go home and to get in touch with your anger. And embrace it tenderly and look deeply into your anger. But in this practice of pounding the pillow, you don't really get in touch with your anger. You are a victim of your anger. You are not getting in touch. You are not even in touch with the pillow. Although you are hitting it. Because if you are really in touch with your pillow, you know that this is only a pillow. It's funny to hit a pillow. The pillow is innocent. So if you cannot get in touch with the pillow, you cannot get in touch with your anger. And if you continue like that, maybe one day meeting him on the street, you may like to hit directly and you get in jail. So this work does not seem to help you to get it out. So according to this practice, the practice that the Buddha recommended, you have to come home and recognize anger and try to hold it with the energy of mindfulness, called mindfulness of anger. Mindfulness is always mindfulness of something. And when I drink my tea and become aware that I am here and now drinking my tea, that is mindfulness of drinking. And when I breathe mindfully, that's mindfulness of breathing. When I walk mindfully, that is mindfulness of walking. So when I come home to myself and recognize my anger and hold my anger, anger becomes the object of my mindfulness. It's called mindfulness of anger. There are two energies. First is the energy of anger. Then the second energy is the energy of mindfulness. And in order to have this energy, you have to practice breathing and walking mindfully. And with the second energy, you recognize the first energy and embrace it tenderly, not suppressing. But embracing tenderly, like a mother embracing her suffering baby. And when the energy of mindfulness is embracing the energy of anger, you suffer less. It's like when the sunshine embracing the lotus flower. The lotus flower get the warmth, the energy in order to bloom. So when you use the energy of mindfulness in order to embrace your anger, you suffer less, you get a relief, you suffer less. And if you look more deeply, and if you can identify the cause of your anger, that may be a wrong perception, that may be your lack of capacity to see the suffering of the other person. And if you identify your wrong perception, or if you can see the suffering of the other person, suddenly that kind of understanding and vision make compassion arise. And when compassion arises, that is a kind of nectar that makes you suffer less right away. You get a relief and you can transform. And this practice always works. You know that in Plum Village, in the past we used to sponsor groups of Palestinians and Israelis to come and practice. And there is a lot of misunderstanding and anger and suspicion in each group. And if they can stay for 2 weeks, and then transformation and healing can be possible. We practice calming, releasing tension. We practice getting in touch with the wonders of life in order to nourish us. And we also practice breathing in order to recognize our suspicion, our fear, our anger. And then we sit down and try to listen to each other and to tell the other group about our own suffering, our own fear, using the practice of the fourth mindfulness training, loving speech and deep listening. You can tell them everything in your heart, your suffering, your fear, your anger. But you tell in such a way that the other person, the other group of person can understand you. Help them to understand. So during the time you speak, you do not condemn, you do not blame. You just try to help them to understand how much you suffer, you and your people and your children. And that is helping them to understand your suffering. And then it will be your turn to sit and listen to their suffering. They will tell you their suffering, their fear, their anger, their despair. And you have to listen. And during the time they speak, you may notice that they have a wrong perception on you. And you want to correct them. But according to this practice, you should not correct them. Because if you correct them while they speak, you will transform the session into a debate. That's not the practice of deep listening. You say, oh, they say wrong things because they have not seen the truth. But I have the time to help them to correct their perceptions in a few days, because they will be there for another week. So in a few days, we will have a chance to tell them, to give them the kind of information that can help them to correct the perception, but not now. Now we have to listen. Listen attentively, because listening like this is called compassionate listening. And if you know how to listen with compassion for 1 hour, they will suffer less. So we are practicing compassion. We are giving them a chance to suffer less. And that is the practice of the fourth mindfulness training. Listening with compassion in order to help other people to suffer less. You might do it with your husband, with your wife, with your son, with your daughter, with your father and mother, and listen so that they have a chance to empty their heart. That is compassion. And after a week of practice, we are able to remove many wrong perceptions. We increase our mutual understanding, and the two groups can sit down, can hold hands to do water meditation, and to share a meal together. Brotherhood, sisterhood is born. So this is a very important practice. And we believe that politicians have to learn this practice. When they come to a peace negotiation, they should follow the instructions of calming, releasing, recognizing suffering inside, recognizing the suffering in the other person. And if they spend 1 week or 2 weeks practicing like that, their negotiation for peace will be fruitful. And I think in school of political science, students have to learn this kind of practice. And they don't need to be a Buddhist in order to learn. And this is applied ethics that can be taught in every kind of school, including elementary school. Because children can learn the practice and reconcile with their brothers and sisters and reconcile with their parents and help even their parents. There are many retreats organized for young people, children, and the children are transformed when they are able to see the suffering in their father, in their mother. And they come home after the retreat and they listen to their father and mother and help them to suffer less. It's a miracle that always happens in our retreats.